Hello, welcome, welcome. If you're watching this, we are doing the Projector Success Series, and we're talking a little bit about Projector Playground with Dana Evans, who is a 2-4 emotional projector, who has just absolutely blown me away with her work and her commitment to living her design, work in quotations, obviously, and really taking what she's brilliant at as this natural two-line and sharing it with her network and being recognized and invited by the people who love her and invite her to do the things that she's brilliant at. So, Dana, hi.
Hi, I'm so happy to share and be here.
Yay. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about your experience with Projector Playground. You have been in multiple rounds at this point. Are we at 3?
Mm-hmm.
Three rounds. It's like 3 or 4. 3 rounds of Projector Playground, which is my 3-month projector only mastermind small group where we just get to live our experiments together. And so I would love to know, from your perspective, what is this program in your own words? For you, how did you experience it? Tell us about Projector Playground.
Well, I remember, so I was working with you one-to-one when this was being released. And I was hounding you. I'm like, don't give my spot away.
I won't, don't worry.
I need to make sure I am in this program. So it's after working with you one-to-one and really starting to play with being a projector and understand it, I just knew I wanted to go further and deeper. And it was it's so crazy because I one-to-one, I feel like you can go really deep, but there's something about being with a group of people that are your people, AKA projectors in this experience. And I just wanted to see other projectors and how they were living. My own curiosity, I was like, I need to know what they're doing, how they're successful, and what this means. And I need to be in community. That was one of the biggest, most important things for me in Projector Playground was being in community with projectors, because I have an amazing community. And none of them, well, I just found out one of my previous community is a projector, but they're all generous. So even as they learned about what it meant to be a projector, as human design became more popular. And even though those who understand me and see me the best, I just never felt like when I'd say, gosh, I'm tired, they'd be like, oh, well, just someone said this to me just the other day. Just do a 30-minute push and, finish strong. They told me to finish strong.
Which is just your least favorite saying these days.
I'm like, no, I wilt like you,
yeah. Wilting flower.
Wilting during the day. I don't finish strong. I teeter out. Yeah. So to be in a group of people who are living this, experimenting with it and playing with it, I mean, it just made me feel like it's so easy to backslide in a generator world. And it happens, even, to this day, it can happen. And so when you have that constant touch point of other projectors, and just the simplest of questions that you've asked me of, well, do you have to do all of that? I need to get all this done. Do you need? And it's the mind's of course I need to, and it short circuits a little bit.
What kind of question is that? Of course.
So that is really what it is for me. It's community, it's connection, and it's being with people who are living the experiment and having that constant touch point that brings you back of it's okay if you're feeling agitated and annoyed and frustrated. And if you're not feeling seen and you're really bitter about that, they understand, because other people ask, I'm like, well, they don't see me. Generators will say, well, everyone wants to be seen.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but I can't explain how much that means to me. And to have this group of people to come back to and connect with, it's just a rapid accelerator of living your design feeling safe doing so, and then experiencing the success that comes with that.
Damn. Thank you for that. Yeah. Wow. And there's so much of your design that just showed up in that explanation, which I just like, love hearing it. Like for the fourth line, right? Like a 2-4, when we're here as projectors for the others, we actually learn best through the others' experience. So while 1-to-1 is really a beautiful container and something that projectors really, excel in leading and as well as being a part of, but like when we can see someone else experience it, we actually gain more from their experience than if we were to come in and ask that question. So I just think it's like such a cool group dynamic to be like, wait, I'm going through that exact same situation, but like I'm learning more because you asked that question, right? Like it's so fun to watch, especially for fourth lines, because you're meant to learn in community. So it's just like so good, so good. I'm curious what I know we worked together one-on-one like before the Projector Playground experience. So I'm just curious, like, what did your life look like before starting to experiment with being a projector, and what your life looked like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of false energy.
Hmm.
And a lot of false, I mean, because a big thing for me that I've learned is like being an emotional projector
Mhm.
and a 2-4. Well, all of it. Okay.
All of
But
it.
it's like before was very busy. I mean, I lived a very busy and a very social life. And one of my big takeaways, like as I say the word big takeaway, I'm like, well, there's many big takeaways, but so let's like categorize them. This is what's coming through. So chunk one, and then I'll relate it to my design.
Fabulous.
Chunk one is I lived a very busy social life. And with that, I was honoring some of the 4 in me, but I was not honoring the 2, the hermit, the one who needs to pull away to integrate, to have a lot of space. That has been such a big thing for me, is just giving myself space, physical space, my office. One of the things I told you early on was like success means like having this beautiful home and like letting that be part of it. So it's like physical space, energetic space, emotional space, space without my husband, just like to be alone. And that's, I know, projector and part of my 2-ness. And then, so that was like the busy socialness. And it was a lot of doing. Because before working with you, I mean, I have been in so many programs because I love learning. Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I do love learning, but what I found out is that a lot of that learning, while it got me to a certain place, it was coming from a place of not enoughness.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't know enough, that I'm not good enough, that I'm not smart enough, that I don't have the intellectual knowing. And so another big piece of this, and this is my 2-ness, easy breezy genius, is really leaning into trusting my own genius. And that if it's easy for me, if it comes naturally for me, I don't have to learn more. Like I can pick it up, embody it, and then live it and teach from that place. So that is amazing. I mean, that's like a big, so again, living my design versus just living life was like a lot of doing, a lot of socialization, a lot of learning. And I was in other programs about launching. And when you found me, when I found you, I had just finished my challenge launch. And
my heart is like racing to just hear it. Like even challenge launch. Okay.
It was so much outward energy every day. And I remember you asked me this question again. This is something you get in Projector Playground. It's like you get these people who see you and then ask these really beautiful questions. And you said, well, how did you feel during that launch? Because I was so tired. And I said, I felt like I was performing. And I don't remember what part of my chart that is.
just quantum, baby, quantum. I mean, that's a really big part of like being a projector and doing things in a generator world the generator way. It's like we got to turn on.
Yeah. Like fighting to be seen too. Like that was another part of, there was definitely a wound in my before world of desperately wanting to be seen and understood. And that showed up in my relationships, that showed up in business, in like, look at me. And now, well, one, you showed me that like over and over and over again, you're like, how can you recognize yourself? Hello,
You're
projector.
giggling about this, but like for real, like this, it's hard, right? It's, I mean, that's like the hard part. It's like seeing yourself, as well as there's a little bit of open throat there, right? Undefined throat, which is like the desire for that attention, like being like, see me, which all projectors have, but then it's just like exacerbated by that undefined throat. And so it's just like, oh, noticing that. This is just an undefined center. This is just the ego telling me there's something not right, not enough.
Yeah. And it's so different because, my environment, it's observed. And it's so different now because, and I experienced this in January when I was at a group event with a bunch of generators and manifesting generators. And I actually really sat back and was really anchored and grounded in my own self. And I was seen more and invited more and asked and like looped in more through my calm, like sitting back energy than like trying, to poke my way into the conversation. And where I wasn't seen, there was such a softening around it because I'm like, we're not for everybody.
Yeah. Oh, that's so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole like lean back energy and knowing that like whatever you're having to say or share is enough. And if they want it, they'll ask. And just like watching it come to you is such a different experience. Oh, I feel that so hard.
Yeah.
Ooh, so good.
Yeah. There was something else that was coming through, but it's gone. If it comes back, I'll bring it up.
Another bucket.
Yeah.
A lot of doing.
I like see it. It's down here, but I don't know. It's
if you want to come out, you're welcome to surface for us. I'm wondering if you could share of those things, how they shifted. I think you shared a little bit about that, like the softening and the less doing and the needing more space. But can you share like overarching, like what your days look like now through living your design?
Oh yeah.
Like
so that was another thing of a before is I am good at a lot of things. And so, and have learned and have gone really deep in a lot of different topics. And so what I was doing was everything. And this was like, so before when I worked at a company, like I would just keep taking on work and making it better. And then they wouldn't use my new systems.
Most projector sentence of the whole time.
Like, if you just do what I'm telling you to do, it will be better. No. So like there's that, but then I left that job and had been, on my own for a couple of years before working with you, doing all these other programs and launching and like trying out all these things. But I was like, I defined, like, especially because my husband worked and had a full-time job, and I was like, I got to prove myself. So I was doing like body work. Like I was going to people's homes and doing one-to-one body work. I was doing meal plans and shopping lists for people. I was teaching at a yoga studio multiple times a week. I was teaching at a college. I was teaching at the college. I was doing a little bit of like kind of coaching online, mostly through health and nutrition. And it was like, oh, and I was doing marketing stuff, like freelance. And so it's like my days, I even look back at my calendar, even like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And it's like, oh God, my calendar was so full. And I really took pride in that. That was like a big part of my identity. And that was the hardest thing I've done is letting myself have space, slowing down, not overbooking, and doing that in front of my husband.
Yeah.
Who is a manifester
Mm-hmm.
and has unlimited endurance, it seems. And he'll work. So I would have to be witness in my non-doing. And I cried to you about that so many times, like shame and embarrassment and like, how can I prove myself? But like, I was willing because I was so committed to the experiment, because what I was doing wasn't working. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, I was spinning, I was busy, I was going, I was social, I was proving, I was performing, and I wasn't getting the results I wanted. And I wasn't feeling successful in any aspect. And so then now on the other side, like this week has been I was sharing before this, such a good week of like, I'm preparing for this new program that birthed. I didn't think of it or plan it. It came to me. I let it sit. I rode my emotional wave. And then when it was time for the program information to come, I just sat down and I did it. And now I'm like, okay, let's bring people in. So it's like this week, the only thing that I'm really focusing on is just being seen, like allowing myself to be seen. So like when things come through that I need to share, I just share them. I put them on Instagram, I put them in my newsletter, I'm putting it on my podcast. Like, that is my job right now, is to allow what's coming through to be heard.
So good.
And it's crazy. Like, I can't tell you, like all week I've been kind of like not battling, but like I can see my mind. It's like, because technically I'm going into a launch. And my mind has so much conditioning around launching. And like, I'm like, it's like almost resisting, like, I need to make a plan. I need to schedule all this. I need to pre-write all these emails. I need to pre-plan all these Instagram lives. Like, and like, as I say that, like, I feel contraction in my chest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I keep releasing that. And it's like, no, like, I was laying in the grass yesterday, like totally just like took my towel out, laid in the grass and just breathed. And then this whole message came through. And I was like, oh, so I recorded myself in that. That's going to be an email. That's going to be an Instagram reel and a post. And it took very little effort. And it's like, it's the non-doing, which everyone freaking says. And it just doesn't make sense until it does. It's like, now the way I live is, it is the less doing. That's and the space that actually gives me what I need. Like, I often wake up in the middle of the night with content, and it's so annoying because I want to be sleeping, but I'm like, if I just capture this, so I just wake up in the night and on my nose and I just I go to sleep, wake up in the morning, I'm like, God, that's so good. That's my email.
Yeah. Whereas if you would have sat down at your computer and been like, okay, I gotta write an email, what would that experience be like?
Yeah, it's horrible and it's frustrating, and it's like you're trying to be creative and so it's like so much less trying, and it's more being, right? That's what we're supposed to do. But it's like allowing ourselves to be. So it's like my days, here is a very typical day now. Maybe 2 hours of work. And I have some other things that I do for other people. So this isn't just my business. So say if there's a coaching call, like 2 to 3 hours of work. And then I spend like an hour to probably 2 hours in morning time. I do like my morning things in the house, like unload the dishwasher, make the bed, like things that make my house pretty that I love. I go on a walk. I sit and have breakfast and coffee on the patio with my cat, and read maybe. And then I do like a couple chunks of work, like 1.5 hours is like good for me. Then I take a long lunch break.
Yes.
And like lay on, maybe watch a show at lunch. I love watching a show with my lunch, or read my book, go on a walk with my husband later, a second walk with him. And then I like try to, everything's done by 3. And then I make dinner, usually make a cocktail at 4. And then I start my wind down bed process at like 8 in the summer. I
Uh,
do face massage.
oh,
I do like lymphatic stuff. I get in bed, I breathe, I read, listen to a meditation, and I sleep for 9 hours. That's my life. And in between that, I am in a lot of communication with friends and people that I love. Like I keep that connection going. Like there is a lot of connection. And 2 of my most favorite people I met in Projector Playground, who we're just like such deep connections, right? That we were brought together. And they've also been 2 of the people who have recognized and invited me the most. So it's like,
yeah.
and the mind wants to be like, oh gosh, friends that like, blah, blah. It's like, no, to be in a group of people who see you, that is also one of the best places to be recognized and invited for your work. So it's like networking, but not gross networking.
Right. And it's so funny that what the mind does, right? Because the mind is like, oh, it doesn't count because we know you, right? Whereas like you're a 2-4, literally you're like meant to do business with people you know and like who know you and who recognize you and who are like, wait, I see you so deeply, like please support me, right? And so it's so funny that like what's the easiest to us can often the mind can turn into like not counting when it should get to count for the most.
For the most, that was a big takeaway too. It was very hard to receive that of the people who see me the most, recognize me the most, and that counts the most.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so good.
Mm.
Your life sounds so like, oh, spacious. I know you love that word. And that's like really, really what it feels like weaving all the things that you love into your days. Mm, so
And
juicy.
letting it be enough. Like
Yeah.
that yesterday, I was reviewing my day. The mind was reviewing it with a critical eye.
Mm-hmm. Per usual.
And yeah,
Projectors. Everything can be better always.
always. And the first thought was, I didn't do much work,
Mm.
right? Because it's very addicted to siloing things. But then I zoomed out, and this has been an important part too of recognizing that everything I do is work.
Yeah.
It can all be work. I do a lot of stuff in our house. So it's like, okay, well, I took an hour to make this amazing meal.
Mm-hmm.
This is like me going back to the mind. So it's like the mind wants data. It took an hour to make this meal. I handled like 3 different things for my husband that were like, now he just doesn't have to deal with. And that's like great for him, great for me. I don't care. They're easy. And then I did a little bit of work, and then I got to lay outside and rest, which is where that message came through that became like the most important thing to share that day. So it's like I had to be on a coach's training call, and I'm like, that's work too. Like seeing that work, AKA for me as a projector, it's almost like it's where I give my energy.
Yeah.
And so instead of being like, well, I have to work 8 hours, well, I can't, I don't want to either work 8 hours and then clean the house and then, go to the grocery store and then make dinner and then get on a training call. And it's like, I'm not doing that anymore and it's not effective. So I think that's it can be a hard lesson to learn, but also really valuable is like work for you means like, these are energy outputs.
Ugh, so good. I love the way you synthesize. Gosh, so freaking beautiful. I'm curious, like on that note, like for somebody who's considering joining Projector Playground, like what would you want to say to them? What would you want to ask them? Like what would be like, okay, you could consider this or you should consider this if, like I'd be so curious on your take.
Well, the first thing that came to mind is if you're ready to radically shift your experience of living and success.
Amen. Yeah.
Because I've seen it, we're talking about me, but I've seen it in the others in the group as well. We all come with our different stuff. And it's really, to me, it was cool to see people at all different levels of business, how like some people scaled back their businesses. Yeah. Simplified. Some, realized they, wanted to create more. And so it's really cool that there's a lot of releasing of the rules, which is why it can be so radical, because we're not following a template. And you gotta be like, that is bold and it can feel so scary. And I think if you aren't in a group of people who are doing that and choosing that scary path, it's going to be so much easier to just fall back and just do what you know and do what everyone else is telling you to do. But it won't get you, like, I know for me, the level of success that I'm feeling in my body, like the truth, I couldn't have gotten there without going through it with other people. And now and getting to talk about it, like you get to share the wins and the milestones, and they're reminding you, hello, we don't like to look at our own growth. So they're reminding you, like, oh, remember when this is the way you saw it? And so like you're having a mirror back of your own transformation, which I think helps transformation move a little quicker.
Oh, yeah. And I feel like stick too, right? It's like,
oh
yeah.
Yeah, you can't squirrel out of it, right? Because, and it can, that's important for that if it's uncomfortable. So it's like, if you're ready for that radical change, because it will be radical. I mean, the further you get into living your projector experiment, the more you experience tastes of what's possible for you, and you can't really go back from that.
Isn't that the truth? Like, even though there's some moments where you're like, oh God, I wish I never learned about this. I wish I never knew it. I'm just going to go back. And then you're like, wait a minute. No, that's actually not true. Not true at all. Right.
And imagine, think of all the times where you've asked yourself or thought like, oh, I just wish I could take a nap. Like, I just wish I didn't have so many things on my plate. I just wish, any of those I just wish statements. And imagine if those became your reality. Like, imagine if you trusted in how efficient you are, and that when the inspiration comes, it's time to do the creation. And that in between those times, you can have these large pockets of space and rest and play and connection. And that it's always exactly what needs to be done will get done. Like, and you get the money, and you get, the play, and you get, for me, money was a sticking point, but now I'm at this place, which is crazy to the mind. I just feel so trusting and knowing of what's coming that I'm no longer in that place of fretting. And it comes, like, it's not like it doesn't show up, but I don't sit in that anymore. When it comes up, I'm like, I am meant for success. I am meant for abundance. I am meant for the finer things in life.
Yes, like, you are defined heart, luxury.
Yeah, like, and I've had them my whole life.
Yeah.
But the mind likes to, write things off or say like, well, that didn't count, or it's because of this. And I'm like, no, it's just like more is coming always. And the more I get into being a projector, like the more I stay in that place and am really held, right, by the others in that community, the easier it becomes to allow that.
So good. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Yes, Instagram at Dana_Evans, and my podcast, the Tuning In Podcast. on iTunes.
If you
Yeah.
want to learn about Dana's like transition, she does a beautiful series called The Sloth Experiment, where she talks about starting to live her projector experiment. And I highly recommend. So thank you so much, Dana. We love having you in Projector Playground, and I know we'll see you again there soon.
Yes. Thank you.